aufschließt, dass du uns deine Gegenwart zeigst und dass wir dich feiern dürfen. Amen. Wir singen.
Sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, oh sinner, come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. Lay down your hurts, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who've strayed. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, a rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are. Come as you are. Come as you There's joy for the morning, oh sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal.
Hallo ihr Lieben, ich darf euch heute zum Gottesdienst begrüßen. Habe ich schon lange nicht mehr gemacht und bin froh, dass ich es wieder machen kann. Und bei meinen Vorbereitungen zu meiner Begrüßung bin ich leider auf meine Einleitung vom letzten Jahr gestoßen. Ja, es ist schon ein Jahr. Und zwar habe ich letztes Jahr am Ostersonntag, da gab es bereits einen Online-Gottesdienst. Und ich habe bei meiner Begrüßung zu euch gesagt, ich habe so erzählt von meinem Ostern, das ich sonst normalerweise so erlebe und wie dankbar ich dafür bin. Und habe dann zu euch gemeint, dass ich traurig bin, dass wir es nicht dieses Jahr erleben können. Aber ich glaube, am Ende dieser Corona-Zeit eine genauso außergewöhnliche Osterfreude erleben zu dürfen, die dann nächstes Jahr am Ostersonntag die perfekte Metapher für Freude, Gemeinschaft, Licht ist. Ja, Pustekuchen, ne? Jetzt sitzen wir immer noch seit einem Jahr hier und ich dachte damals, es ist kein Jahr und es tut mir leid, dass wir wirklich immer noch in dieser Zeit sind. Und es macht mich auch irgendwie sauer und wütend und ich bin genervt und ich finde es anstrengend und erschöpfend. Und genau um solche Klagen und Sorgen oder vielleicht ähnliche, um dieses Gefühl des erschöpfend sein, soll es heute auch gehen. Und zwar geht der Text, um den es heute geht, steht im Buch der Klagelieder. Das lese ich euch kurz vor. An mein Elend und meine Heimatlosigkeit zu denken, bedeutet Wermut und Gift. Und doch denkt und denkt meine Seele daran und ist niedergedrückt in mir. Doch dies will ich mir in den Sinn zurückrufen, darauf will ich hoffen. Ja, die Gnadenerweise des Herrn sind nicht zu Ende, ja, sein Erbarmen hört nicht auf, es ist jeden Morgen neu. Groß ist deine Treue. Mein Anteil ist der Herr, sagt meine Seele, darum will ich auf ihn hoffen. Klagelieder 3, Verse 19 bis 24 und zu diesem Text haben sich Will, Patrick, Judson und Emily ein paar Gedanken gemacht, denen wir heute lauschen dürfen. Und ich bin sehr gespannt. Ich finde es natürlich sehr passend, gerade in unserer Zeit. Ich bete noch und dann beginnen wir den Gottesdienst. Herr, ja, danke. Danke, dass wir jetzt Gottesdienst feiern dürfen. Danke für deine Vorbereitungen zu diesem Gottesdienst. Herr, sei jetzt auch mitten unter uns, sei bei jedem zu Hause und segne diesen Gottesdienst. Wir feiern diesen Gottesdienst im Namen des Vaters, des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
So, hallo ihr Lieben, herzlich willkommen. We've got the Americans are in charge this week. So we are so glad to virtually be with you all this week. It was wonderful to be with you all last week in Zoom. And we are having a bit of a conversation about durchhalten. Is that what it's called? Yeah, durchhalten. Endurance, perseverance through difficult times. So each of us has prepared some thoughts and we're going to kind of respond and reflect to each other as we go through the sequence. So we're all a bit tired these days and exhausted from the continuing lockdowns and the pandemic. For me this year, it has felt like my gas tank has been close to empty just for the whole year. Mira has mentioned many times about the Corona coaster, the up and down and loops of this time in and out of lockdown with and without people. It's exhausting. And this crazy weather this week kind of was a manifestation of that, of a thunderstorm, snow and hail one moment, and then warm and sunny the next, and then raining and cold. And to be perfectly honest, Easter was really tough this year too. Our Zoom service was wonderful. It was beautiful to see you all, but it just wasn't the same as a normal Easter celebration. Easter was a milestone for us this year because it was the first big thing that we all experienced together during the pandemic last year. And it reminded us this year that we've been in this for so long, and it was a bit sad to experience. Easter for me has always been a time of fullness, of food and family and celebration, a high that we could ride a little while to get us to the next thing. But I'm not full from Easter this year, physically because I forgot to buy flour and yeast to make biscuits, but also from our virtual celebration. I did have a chance to video call with my family, but it just wasn't the same as being together with people to celebrate. I only felt a few more drops of gas added to my tank. And then the day after Easter, I had a conversation with a friend who was very sick, and they had finally had a conversation with an estranged parent, and their parent told them that God gave them this sickness because they were gay. After this conversation, it was as if any of the joy of Easter Sunday had never happened, and we were back to the death of Good Friday and the darkness and the anguish of Holy Saturday. Then later this week, I was on a call with our dear friends from Lebanon who are reaching out and caring for vulnerable Lebanese and Syrian refugees despite a mountain of pain and hardship and challenges that the whole country is facing. This gave me more energy and hope that if they can keep on pushing for good, then so can I. Back to the hope of Easter Sunday. In our lives as Christians, we have to find a way to sustainably hold both darkness and light. Too many churches just ignore or rush through the darkness and pain around us and focus only on Easter and only the good things. Other times we can get so bogged down in the challenges of our world that we lose hope. How can we build resilience and endurance to make it through this crazy time? To find a way to remember the full range of experience of Holy Week throughout the year, the pain of Friday, the darkness and abandonment of Saturday, and the joy of Sunday. How do we hold this all together? That's what we're reflecting on today together. I want to read and reflect a bit on Lamentations 3:19 through 24. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I will remember them. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion. Therefore, I will wait for him. A few things that I've found, especially in this past year of the pandemic, but even before that as well. I too often rely on my own strength to get me through the day and the weeks, and not nearly enough on God. I am prone to use church and Christian gatherings as opportunities for spiritual highs, just enough to keep me going throughout the week. Church worship times are a wonderful way to connect with God. Don't get me wrong. But without that physical time and space this year, we've been left empty. And I'm realizing now that I was just relying on church to do the spiritual work for me to get me through the week. Without it, I don't have my fix. Therefore, myself and us, I think we need to fill ourselves and rely more frequently on God's mercies, which are new every morning. God can help us hold the darkness and the light together. This, I think, looks like spiritual discipline, and I am spiritually lazy. This looks like daily intentional time and acts that remind us that we are so deeply loved by God and called to spread goodness. For me, the past few weeks, it has been reading the lectionary Bible readings of the day and doing yoga while listening to worship music every morning. It might look different for you, but practicing regular habits of prayer, scripture reading, and meditation over time can help ground us and give us strength to persevere. But this is just how I've been coping and how I've been persevering. We're going to hear from everyone else in our group as well. So Emily, go ahead and share your thoughts on this.
Thanks, Will. So I was really struck in your introduction about this idea of using Easter or any sort of these religious holidays within Christendom as a sort of spiritual high. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, we do have this tendency to treat faith as just like a ladder of extreme highs and extreme lows. I even think about the way our week is structured within Christianity, right? Like you said, we go through our normal life and then boom, Sunday, we go and enjoy our worship music, friends and fun and encouragement. And then we just pray that that high sustains us for the rest of the week. I think this past year has shown us that when that man-made pattern is taken away, when those things that used to give us that spiritual high are no longer at our disposal as they once were, what then? Is that what faith is supposed to be? Just chasing one high after another? How is that different from any other aspect of the human experience, right? Especially within our consumer culture. As someone who's really guilty of this, I've just seen that it's not sustainable. I feel like COVID has just expedited those needs. There are so very few moments of spiritual highs we get in community during COVID that when they come, we just reach and pull and tug at it, even if it just gives us a bit more energy to get us through the next week. Running on empty, the gasoline tank, as you said, is a great metaphor. This inevitably leads to tiredness and exhaustion. Will and I joked the other day that we can't wait until COVID ends because we can finally get back to seeing friends in person all the time. But also that idea of being around people like before also sounds just as exhausting as being around no people at all. We have been conditioned to be fueled from those immediate highs, but when those highs aren't made to sustain us, I feel like it's just feeling those symptoms of a broken system over and over and over again. Speaking of being in community, even the end of Easter, of the great Easter story, calls us to go, right? The Great Commission, go, 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 says Jesus. After the sadness of Good Friday, the waiting of Holy Saturday, the excitement of Sunday, we are then called to go on to the next thing. Sunday is over, now go. But when going seems aimless, when going seems exhausting, I find myself just running in circles. I'm going, but I'm not really going anywhere. So where is the silver lining? Where is the sustainable hope that we should be pulling from? The easy VBS Sunday school answer is Jesus, right? Just trust in Jesus and everything will be okay. But for people who seem lost and exhausted and frustrated, the answer could just make people more lost, more exhausted, and more frustrated. What does that even really mean? What do I actually do? I read this book at the beginning of quarantine called Liturgy of the Ordinary by Trish Harrison Warren. And basically, the whole book is about how Christians look for the big, bold things to fix our faith or better our relationships, but we ignore the holiness and importance of the mundane, everyday tasks. We tend to not see the holiness in those day-to-day menial to-do list items. She says everyone wants a revolution, but no one wants to do the dishes. I think this is the time of doing the dishes, doing the yoga / worship, music / liturgy morning routine, finding joy in picking up your kids from school or cooking a meal for your family, brushing your teeth or making your bed. This won't cure everything, of course, but it rejects a faith that just chases after highs or just looks for the next make me feel better moment. It calls for peace in the here and now. I think I feel Jesus more in those moments now. Maybe that's just a condition of the coronavirus-induced isolation, but I think the beauty of our faith is that it calls us to bend and move and glide to the rhythm of life. Boxing Jesus into a specific life or experience is not what we're called to do. Rather, we're challenged to seek God in all parts of our lives, right? If you feel this emptiness, exhaustion, frustration of the constant highs and lows of the past year, I am with you. I feel that lack of energy. I pray every day for renewal, for new life, for new joy, and I pray that we find it, even in the simplest and everyday moments of a seemingly mundane life. I pray for revelation, and I pray this for myself, just as I pray it for all of you. And now we're gonna pass it along to Judson, I think, right?
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Emily. I don't want to be the doom and gloom person, but when the topic of this week kind of came up in our meeting earlier this week, and what Will sent to us, his words, it kind of struck me because I'm a person that Of course, I find God in the community, in relationships with people, and of course, it's hard for me. COVID and the lockdown, not being able to see people. But especially, I'm going through this season in my life of deconstruction, of questioning what I believe, and doing that without a family of faith to see every day or to see every Sunday is tough. For those of you who remember the times that I've preached in the church, my theme has always been one of look for God in the people, look for God in each other, look for God in these relationships. And of course, like I said, it's hard right now to do that because we can't meet up. But what I've personally been struggling with hasn't been exclusively this. It's been finding God at all, finding God in the mundane tasks, finding God in the tasks that I used to see Him clearly in. And now, whether it's from the long distance fellowship that we've been enduring for the past year, or whether it's just a season of my life, finding God is just seemingly at the moment impossible. And I feel like a normal response to this would be to walk away from it all. You know, what is it doing for me? So if it's not doing anything, drop it, right? But that's a little harder when I've based my life for the past 4 years around working in the church and chasing and following and studying this hope that we claim to have as Christians. Hell, I moved to Vienna, halfway across the world, to study theology and to work in a church and to follow that hope and to follow that passion. So it's difficult to be stuck in this area of what now? Emily and I spoke yesterday, and I thought of the metaphor of a boat for our faith. So when you believe, you have this constant contact with people, your family of faith. You have these activities that you do that constantly fill you. And like Will said, it might not be, focused on every week, once a day or once a week, meeting on a Sunday and getting this spiritual high. But even in these activities, reading liturgies or doing yoga while listening to praise music, that's the boat. That's this constant that you have. Sure, waves come. It batters you up a little bit. You get shaky. Things get dangerous at times, but you still have that boat. But I think most of us right now can see ourselves as falling out of the boat because we've fallen out of this norm that we used to have before Corona, of seeing each other every week. And even though we have fallen out, we have this land that we're going to. The land being this hope that we're hoping that in the future, after all of this is over, we'll be able to see each other again, and we'll be able to feel God again, and we'll be able to rejoice in the presence of the Lord, however you see it, right? But and the group that I want to speak to directly is the group that feels like they've fallen out and there's no land in sight to swim to. The group that feels like they're treading water just to stay alive. They feel like there's no promise of dry land, and there seems to be no way of saving yourself from this despair by means of whatever have you, in finding God in this case, in finding connections to feel spiritually filled. And I've tried. This is where the doom and gloom comes in. I've tried to figure out a way to wrap this up nicely, and say, no, there's hope, there's hope, there's hope. But where I am in life, I haven't found that answer yet. Sure, I can say it, but I want to be able to say it with conviction. I won't say that until I have conviction. But I know, going back to the metaphor, I know I'm not going to stop treading water. And whether it's because I'm stubborn or hopeful deep down somewhere, I hope to find that answer in the future. But all I can say for now is that I'm here with you. I am struggling. And that if you were going through the same thing, you're not alone. But I'd like to hear from Patrick to see what he has to say.
Ja, danke Judson, Will und Emily. Für mich, wenn ich an diese Ideen denke, komme ich immer zu einer großen Parallel zu den Jungen, was die genau in dieser Zeit erlebt haben. Man denkt, vor Ostern waren die immer mit Jesus so auf diese Höhepunkte, diese Gipfel von Wunder zu Wunder gegangen und das war alles schön, vielleicht nicht echter Rhythmus, aber die haben immer diese Highs gehabt auf diese Achterbahn. Und dann sind die nach Jerusalem gekommen und da war ein großes Fest, die Leute haben sich alle gefreut am Palmsonntag und da war es dann auch das Passafest und das war so auf dieser höchsten Gipfel zu sein, wo es, jetzt ist alles perfekt, jetzt wird jetzt alles schön sein. Und dann sind die im tiefsten Tal gerutscht, als der Jesus festgenommen wurde und dann später auf dem Kreuz gestorben ist. Und ich glaube, das ist für uns jetzt das gleiche Gefühl von, okay, wir haben diesen Rhythmus und jetzt kommt Ostern, aber was dann jetzt? Wie der Judson gesagt, das, was die Jungen vorher gehabt hat, was die als ein Licht, als ein Weg gehabt hat, ist alles weg. Die haben sich schon verloren. Und ja, später, als der Jesus wieder auferstanden ist und zurückgekommen, war das okay, ja, wieder ein Höhepunkt, okay, ja, das war nichts, jetzt gehen wir zurück, wie das war, so wie wieder diese Normalität. Aber dann hat Jesus gesagt, eigentlich nicht. Ich bleibe so lange nicht bei euch. Ich werde mit meinem Vater sein. Aber ihr müsst weitergehen. In der Ende von der Matthäus-Evangelium, wie Emily gesagt hat, ist der Auftrag an die Jungen, wo der Jesus gesagt hat, deshalb geht hinaus in die ganze Welt und ruft alle Menschen dazu auf, meine Jünger zu werden. Also das heißt, mach's weiter, aber ohne mich. Und das ist so wie, okay, ja, wie ist das möglich? Aber das war nicht alles, nur was Jesus gesagt hat, sondern hat auch die gesagt, aber warte hier in Jerusalem, weil ich werde euch den Heiligen Geist schenken. Aber bis das passiert, warte. Und ich glaube, für uns, das ist leicht zu sagen, oh ja, die wissen schon, ja, Pfingsten kommt und dann wird alles wieder los und dann kommt das ganze Neue Testament. Aber in der Zeit glaube ich nicht, dass die das so genau gewusst haben. Das war diese, okay, ja, wir bekommen was, aber was bedeutet das genau? Wann kommt das genau? Wie wird es dann sein? Was wird passieren? Und alle diese Fragen, alle diese Unsicherheit von, wie gehen wir jetzt dann weiter? Und das für mich ist genau dieses Gefühl von dem Corona, von okay, wie gehen wir jetzt uns weiter? Weil ja, Ostern ist schon passiert, aber wie der Will gesagt hat, diese normale Gefühl war nicht da. Und na, wie gehen wir wirklich weiter? Der Pfingsten ist noch nicht da. Wir haben noch 6 Wochen vor Pfingsten, in dieser Zwischenzeit, wo wir wirklich nicht so viel dran denken, na, was bedeutet diese Zeit? Was ist da drin passiert? Und nicht nur bei den Jungen, aber was bedeutet das dann auch für uns?
Ja, so danke euch. Wir haben nicht alle Antworten, mehr Fragen als Antworten, aber ja, wir sind zusammen und I think I will end with this kind of blessing and say, I've been reading a book that looks back on some of kind of the super saints of the past and how they did it, how they made it through hardships. And a common thread is many would start each day in prayer, reflecting on the fact that they are so deeply loved by God. And you all, us four, but whoever is watching as well, you are so deeply loved by God. And that's maybe all we can hang on to these days. Hang in there. Know that you are loved and that we are in this all together.
All the music changes and the songs we sing, we still lift our praises to our loving God and King. Though the music changes and the songs we sing, we still lift our praises to our loving God and King. Though the seasons change, your love
Wir kommen zu den Ankündigungen und die Gottesdienste finden weiterhin online statt. Änderungen oder Infos werdet ihr dann über unsere Webseite, über Facebook oder über das Gemeindehandy erfahren. Der zweite Punkt ist, dass es 5 Interviews beim Verwaltungsgericht nächste Woche laufen und da der Aufruf für die Menschen dort zu beten, für die Gespräche zu beten, dass diese gesegnet sind und dass es einen positiven Ausgang für jeden Einzelnen hat. Kommen wir zur Kollekte und meine Worte zur Kollekte habe ich diesmal geklaut und zwar von der lieben Julie, die etwas in unser Gemeindehandy geschrieben hat und ich fand es irgendwie nett und treffend und super formuliert und deswegen lese ich das jetzt euch nochmal vor, falls es ihr nicht eh schon gelesen habt oder davon gehört habt. Genau, und zwar hat sie geschrieben: Es ist so schön zu sehen, wie viele Menschen ein großes Herz für die Gemeindearbeit, die Projekte rund um die Gemeinde und ihre Vision haben. Durch eure Treue und eure Ausdauer schenkt ihr Hoffnung. Wenn auch dein Herz für die Menschen in der Projektgemeinde und deren Projekte schlägt, ... auf dem Gemeindekonto ist noch Platz. Und das kann gar nicht zu voll sein. Also in diesem Sinne, ihr wisst, was ich meine. Und ich möchte jetzt noch den Segen sprechen aus Jesaja 54,10. Und ihr könnt dazu aufstehen oder machen, was ihr wollt, oder euch einfach berieseln lassen. Berge mögen einstürzen und Hügel wanken, aber meine Liebe zu dir wird nie erschüttert und mein Friedensbund mit dir wird niemals wanken. Das verspreche ich, der Herr, der dich liebt. Amen. Schönen Sonntag euch.